and then we'll be able to get started.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Schools Forum. I'm Dave Jones and I'll be chairing the meeting today. Members of the public are invited to view this meeting online and the meeting is recorded. Forum members are requested to keep their microphones on mute and only turn these on when they're called to speak. If you have any questions or comments to make on these reports, please use the chat function and simply state RTS, which is request to speak. Okay. So I'm just going to start off by asking everyone taking part to confirm their presence. I'm going to go through my list. Okay. So Jackie Collins.
Present.
Thank you. I'm here. Cher. No, can't see Cher at the moment. Jason Crouch. No. Joe Cooper. No. Anne Chapman. No. Toria Page won't be here. She's moved on. Sean Preston.
Yep, I'm here.
Brilliant. Nathan Waits.
Yep, I'm here.
Got Nis Hardingham. No, not yet. Chris Purnell. Caroline Corcoran. No. Councillor Horton. No. Councillor Udi. No. Laura Flitton.
Present.
Councillor Smythe. No. Councillor Stagg. No. Councillor Norton. No. Sharon Burt.
Present.
Thank you. Mike Gaston. No. Cara Jewell. No. And we have Alison Edgerton here.
Yes,
Angela,
I'm present.
Thank you. Angela Mann.
I'm here, and also Councillor Simpson, I think, is here now instead of Councillor Udi.
Okay. Welcome, Councillor Simpson. Mike Stoneman. Not here yet. No. Sarah Daly.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. Karen Martin. No. I've got two observers. Sam Galloway. Are you here?
She's not here today. Apologies.
Okay. Louise Hex. No. We're supposed Carl McCarthy joining us from Chichester Academy Trust for the flying bull item.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who name's not on my list that I haven't called out?
Yes, Simon Graham saying
yeah, Simon and Liz Robinson.
Liz Robinson, Head of Inclusion.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. It's not on my list, so I missed you out. Anybody else? No? Right, great. We're all ready to get going then. Alison, any apologies for absence? There's obviously quite a few absences.
There's quite a few absences, but I've only had two apologies, one from Liz Hardingham and one from Cher Dall.
Okay. declarations of interest. So this is an opportunity to share if any have changed, and Alison, if there are any we need to catch up on.
I'm outstanding 3 declarations of interest, one from Chris Purnell, Anne Hibbard and Victoria Page. But it sounds like Victoria Page may have left the authority, so I'll need to adjust that membership. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so item 3 on the agenda is membership, and that includes endorsement of chair and vice chair of schools forum. So I'll hand over to you, Alison, for that one.
Yes, just firstly an update on the current membership position. Since the last meeting, we've had 2 members that have left the forum. Following the local elections, Councillor Claire Rudy from the independent group is no longer a member of the forum, and I'd like to thank Claire for her input and support to the forum over recent years. In addition, Councillor Lynn Stagg from the Liberal Democrat group is no longer eligible to sit on the forum as she holds a cabinet position, and I would like to thank Councillor Stagg for a contribution to the forum over recent years. We have requested from the Liberal Democrat group a replacement for Councillor Stagg. We have 2 new members. To replace Councillor Claire Rudy, we have Councillor Russell Simpson, who's joined us from the independent group, and I'd like to welcome you, Councillor Simpson, to the forum. And also we have Simon Graham, who I mentioned last time was a new member to the forum, replacing David Jeeps, and it's his first meeting, so I'd like to welcome him as well. We've had 1 resignation to the forum. Carolyn Corcoran has informed us that she will be retiring at the end of the summer term, and therefore she will no longer become a member after July. I was hoping she'll be at the meeting, but I could offer my thanks to her. But in case she hears this over the airwaves, I'd like to offer the thanks and support that she's given to the forum over recent years. We have the following tenures that are due to come to an end. Nothing before the next meeting, but we have Sharon Burt's tenure as representative of Academy Special Schools is due to come to end in September. I have been in touch with both Sharon and Matthew McLaughlin Parker from Delta Trust, and they've both come back to me and confirmed that Sharon will be able to continue her tenure from September as the Special Academy representative, and Matthew is going to be the named substitute with immediate effect. So then thank you both of them for continuing. Sorry, I've just had a minor technical issue, but everything's suddenly gone up very high. So I've got mouse problems today, so please, please bear with me. We have the following vacancies. We have a Liberal Democrat group vacancy, which I've mentioned earlier. Hopefully we shall hear from them fairly soon as who's going to replace Councillor Stagg. And we will also have 2 Academy secondary representatives vacant. And again, I will go out and try and seek some representation from that group after the meeting. And I don't know whether anybody's got any questions on membership before we go on to the appointment of chair and vice chair. No? Okay. So as I mentioned in the meeting in February, I updated the forum that following the resignation of David Cheap's as representative of these maintained schools head teachers, that we were looking for a volunteer to take over the chair. Since then, we've had a couple of meetings with Dave Jones, who's our current vice chair, and Nathan Waits, who's one of our secondary academy representatives. And we have the following proposal to put to schools forum. We're proposing that Dave Jones takes on the chairmanship of the forum and Nathan Waits takes on the role of vice chair. And what we'd like to do is to propose this to the meeting and then take a vote. During the vote, unfortunately, both Nathan and Dave would need to leave the meeting while we have any discussion and then come up with a vote. So, Nathan, would you like to leave the meeting for a couple of minutes, please? Thank you. It's not quite the same as leaving the room, is it? So I was wondering if it's possible if people are happy with that proposal, or if anybody's got any discussion. I'll leave you for a minute to put in RTS if there's anything you would like to say.
Could I not speak, or do I have to fight?
No, it's quite okay if you'd like to speak, please, Councillor Russell Simpson. Thank
you. It's just because I only really learned today that I'm on I'm on this forum, and I do come from an education background, taught at multiple institutions. I don't know anything about the two people that I'm voting or not voting in. So if anyone could give me a quick, not that I'm going to go with the flow of it, but can anyone give me a background on the two that we're electing today?
I can give you a little bit of background as far as the forum is concerned. David Jones, he's one of our primary maintained school head teachers. He's been vice chair on the forum for a number of years and has been a member of the forum for a number of years. Nathan Waits, he works in one of our secondary academy schools in the city, and he has been a member of the forum for a number of years, although he's not actually held a role on the forum in that sense, but he has contributed to the forum over the last few years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions at all?
Alison,
sorry,
I just put in the chat about whether we core it or not with them both going.
That's broken. Let me just double check. Sorry.
We would core it whilst they were here, and we've got a lot of people who aren't able to vote, including you and I. I know we weren't counted in your core it thing, but
we're not going to be quorate even if both of them come back into the meeting. So I think what we're going to have to do is to probably postpone the vote until we are quorate, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that, folks. I hadn't realised that. Jane, could you let them both back into the meeting, please? Hello, Nathan. I'm ever so sorry, but unfortunately, with both of you leaving the meeting, we became unquorate. And even if we'd let one of you back in to vote for each other, if that's what you wanted to do, we still weren't going to be quorate. So we are going to have to postpone the vote. But Dave, as vice chair, you are able to take the meeting anyway. And my apologies to members about that.
Okay, thank you. We'll carry on regardless. Okay. So we'll go on to minutes of the last meeting on the 9th of February. So we need to ensure it's a correct record. Are members happy with these as a correct record? Okay, there's no dissent. So the minutes of the previous meeting have been approved. And I don't believe there are any matters arising from the previous minutes. No.
Sorry, Dave.
I
sorry.
just realised I can't see my chat function.
No, I was putting into the chat about required to speak. Just to confirm, at the last meeting, we informed members about the high needs supplementary grant that we would be consulting with special schools and alternative provision settings in the city. And then if there was an issue, we would come back to schools forum at a later date. However, I just really wanted to inform members that we have agreed the high needs supplementary grant going out to the special schools and alternative provision settings in the city, and those payments are in the process of being made to the schools at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Nathan, I might call on you as vice chair because I can't, whatever's going on with Teams for me today, I can't see the chat function today. So if anyone has RTS, you might have to shout out for me.
Officially, I'm not now vice chair.
Oh, you're not, are you? But you can
I'm
help
more
me.
than happy to I'm more than happy to assist for today.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with it today. Really odd. Okay. Okay, then we're moving on to item 5, the element 3 top-up funding for 22-23. And Angela, I believe you're going to talk us through this element.
I am. Thank you, Dave. So the report, hopefully everybody's had a chance to read it, and the report deals with 2 main issues. The first is the increase in the top-up rates for Flying Bull alternative provision, which we went out to consultation on earlier in the year, and the second relates to the corrected Redwood Park Academy element 3 top-up values. So for the Flying Bull alternative provision, we went to all primary schools for consultation because it affected them, and the consultation papers are attached to the report, which detail the business case as well. And we had a 13% response rate, and the details are in the table 1 and also summarised in 4.6. And all the questions that were raised by the consultation we've responded to separately, and all those responses are also contained in Appendix B for Schools Forum to look at. And Carl's here in case anybody has any questions. If I just talk about Redwood Park Academy as well, and then I'll take any questions and point them in the direction of the right person, if that's okay. So with regards to Redwood Park Academy, whilst our previous report used the correct values in the budgets for the 22-23 report in Appendix 3, it did quote the errors of the individual amounts, so apologies for that. The school has been paid using the correct rates since the beginning of April, but Schools Forum are asked to endorse the corrected values for completeness, which we've included in this report. So those are the 2 items, and so I don't know whether anybody's got any questions on either one.
Okay, so any questions about either? Nathan, this is where you need to help me out.
Yeah, if we can go to Sharon Burt first of all, please.
I was just going to say thank you for making the corrections. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, and then next is Sean Preston.
Thank you very much. I think from my perspective, I've got a question and really a query, less so about the specifics, but more around the process itself. I understand the rationale behind why Flying Bull are looking at this proposal. However, my concern is why decisions like this are made on an ad hoc basis. And I recall a conversation we had a number of years ago regarding a specific school and situations with financial difficulty where they raised a business case for support. My worry is looking at schools on an individual case-by-case basis. I would be fairly confident that every school, whether special, maintained or anything in between, has issues financially. Do we set a precedent by making decisions like this on a case-by-case basis that could open floodgates and potentially lead us into a circumstance where we come into a situation where those who shout loudest gets more money? I think we just need to consider that quite carefully. Like I said, none of this is a comment against what Flying Bull were suggesting, just for the record. It's more around why this is happening in this way on a one-off basis, because there'll be many other schools who I'm sure will have other prior pressures and things they'd want to look at. So I'm just keen maybe to just raise that as a concern for this discussion point and get people's views as to what they feel is appropriate moving forwards, because this could be quite a sensitive matter that could have repercussions on us further down the line. And sorry, I don't know how I'm aiming that. I just wanted to raise that and flag it as a potential concern.
That's great. Thank you, Sean. I mean, I think this is slightly different to the others because this is also about the expansion of you know, of flying bull, but I do take your point. I can see Angela's hand up, which is helpful, and Lizzie. So Angela first.
Oh, excellent. Sorry, I forgot about the RTS and not being able to see, so that's good. It's echoing, I suppose, what you've said, Dave, in terms of, you know, this has come about because of the expansion and having a look at sort of the staffing structure. So it is a bit different. And I suppose when we were making the decisions for Schools Forum about the rates uplift in February, we knew that this work was being done with Flying Bull. So it was sort of, you know, considered, you know, with everybody else as well. So it's just that we were a bit further behind with the work. If we'd have done this, you know, if we could have done the work earlier, then actually this would have been in line with all the other element 3 top-ups, and we would have brought it in February as well. But so we knew there was an issue, and like I say, it could have been brought in February if we'd have had more capacity to have worked on it a bit sooner. But it is, I don't think it's setting a precedent as it was, because it is quite a specific case.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Liz?
I think my comments will be redundant because Angela's said it. I won't say any more.
That's okay. Any other comments? Simon?
So can I just clarify, is that top up to remain in place forever then, or is it a one-off? The increase to the top up, is that stays in place?
Yes, so that will be the figure for 22-23, and then each year we would normally review all the top-up rates and try and uplift them subject to the funding that we get via the high needs block. And obviously some of the alternative provision is funded directly by schools for both Flying Bull Academy and also the Harbour.
And this is specific for that inclusion centre, that's what you're saying?
It is, yes.
So to take the point that was raised earlier, then surely other inclusion centres will look at this and at some point say the same thing?
Well,
It's a permanent change?
So this is for alternative provision. So we've only got one inclusion centre for alternative provision in the council. So it's unique from that perspective. And then the other alternative provision is at the harbour that we've got in the city.
Okay.
Okay, so any other comments? Sean, you'd like to come back there? Thank you for raising hands, people.
That's all right. My question, the next one is around the pupil premium element of it. Again, whilst I understand the rationale behind the pupil premium following the child, I'm not necessarily sure that's something I agree with, because that's not how the funding always works for schools. It's lagged on a year-by-year basis. So the funding for pupil premium that schools receive is not necessarily dealt with on a case-by-case, pupil-by-pupil basis, and it's always lagged. So as part of the proposal, I personally feel that might be something to debate and discuss in terms of that, and in addition to an increase in the element 3 topping up following the child, because that's not dealt with in any way across the board with pupil premium. So that's just my thoughts on that specific element of that proposal.
Thank you, Sean. Anybody else want to comment on that? Got any thoughts on that? Simon, is that your hand? Is that legacy hand or?
It is, but I would agree with that. I think the pupil premium is a very difficult one to follow, because actually, depending on when the child's moved, you could argue you might have spent that money already. So it'll be in your budget. So that's a really difficult one, I think.
Okay, and Nathan?
Mine was just a sort of question about clarity. So either Angela or Alison perhaps, but in terms of the element 3, obviously these proposed values for Flying Bull are different from the categories at Redwood Park. So perhaps just from my own understanding and other colleagues, is it possible just to explain why there are different values associated with the element 3 top up? And then also I note that the council have done quite a lot of a review of the business case. So I wonder if it's worth just expanding a little bit on what was involved in that in coming up with the proposal for these rates for Flying Bull.
Shall I just answer Nathan's, and then obviously there's more discussions, and Liz might be able to come in as well. So in terms of Nathan's ones, so we have different bandings for different types of needs for the pupils. So Redwood Park is for a specialist school for and for our specialist schools, as well as all the other inclusion centres that we have in the city, and we have bandings based on the needs of the children, whereas alternative provision, they're just all grouped, and so there's one specific band for a child that needs alternative provision, and then there's also the same for the harbour. But for Flying Bull Academy, they just get the one band, so that's a bit different. And then in terms of the work that we've been doing, I think everybody's been working really hard on it for quite a long time, for months before Christmas, and looking at the staffing structure and making sure that it meets the needs and delivers the outcomes that everybody wants for these pupils. And I know Liz has been involved in that with I think Carl and the team, and from the finance side, Alison has been involved from the local authority to work with the team as well to ensure that there's that the finances in the business case do add up, and how then it relates to a banding system. So we've checked the finances that are in that business case.
So just following on, and this might relate back to the other questions that colleagues have just answered. If, for example, 2, 3, 5 years down the line, there was a need for an increased provision within the city, and there was a need for, exactly the same as what Flying Bull are about to deliver to be replicated, is it likely then that the funding rates would be exactly the same for a mirror image duplicate provision? Does that question make sense?
Yes, I mean, I suppose in terms of it should be broadly the same. The staffing structures of what have been discussed with Liz as head of inclusion, and the the MAT. So I would expect it to be the same sort of staffing ratios, that are involved, and the seniorities. Whether there would be a slight change if it was a multi-site inclusion centre and different things like that, but staffing is a huge chunk of costs, as we all know, in schools. So there'd have to be a good rationale why it would be different.
Is that a good time for you to come in, Liz?
Yes, I'm very happy to. But again, I think Angela has answered those questions, but I'd just like to reiterate, Nathan, that would be our starting point. We'd be looking at this, but there might be reasons why it wouldn't be exactly the same. And that would depend on, the environment, the building itself, for example, and the particular needs of the children. But that would be the starting point. Okay, and
Okay,
then
thank you both.
if that makes sense, and then the issue about yeah, there is a band. I think Angela's answered the other questions about the banding that is available for special schools, whereas there is one rate for alternative provision. Yeah.
Thank you. Laura, do you want to come in then?
Thanks. It's not so much a question, it's more a consideration based on some of the comments raised thus far, particularly regarding pupil premium, and how I think that we need to consider the wider cost of supporting pupils at this level of need, and that in order to make sure that we've got the places for these children, the centre has to be able to cater for them appropriately, and children at this level of need will, in my experience, be requiring far more than that pupil premium, and that pupil premium is used strategically by schools, but the long-term benefits for the child and the school financially will outweigh that. What I understand to be temporary, children should be able to enter the provision, make progress, and potentially move back to their mainstream settings. That is a long-term, financially viable and supportive to the child. So although, yes, I completely understand about the lag with pupil premium and the strategically planned years in advance, actually the real costs of supporting these children to schools really do need to be enhanced, and I can really see the benefits of that going into an enhanced provision for the schools and the children. So sorry, not so much question but more a comment on my thoughts, so I'm in support.
No, that's absolutely great, Laura. I mean, I personally I would go along with much of that. You know, especially hopefully not many of us have more than a single child perhaps going there, so actually it's not a huge amount. My only question would be, is there a mechanism for doing it? Because, you know, as you say, with mid-year transfers, has anyone looked at that? How would that work? Is it how many days I've got left, or if it's in the documentation, I've misread it, I apologise. Anybody know? No.
I don't know whether Carl and Alison have talked about it previously in terms of the mechanism. I don't think it's unique. So bringing Alison or Carl, have you spoken about the mechanism? I've got to admit, I assumed it was going to be the same as the element 3 payment, but
I would imagine it would be the same method of collecting the element 3 payment.
Okay, well, that's fine then. Just curious. Nathan, was that your hand up or hand up from before?
No, not mine.
Okay, Simon?
Yeah, from a secondary level for our students, if they go to the harbour, then it's collected via a bill that comes across every half term, so we pay the money that way. So I would imagine the funding will go that way, which works quite equitably. So that works okay. So that would be my guess.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Okay, so I had some thoughts there. And obviously we've got the responses, obviously, from the consultation. So there was a limited number of responses, which we've been able to have a look at. Just any other comments or questions before we move to a vote? Okay. No. Okay. So
sorry, Dave. I've put my hand up just
Sorry.
as you look down. I think just to say that the pupil premium is required as part of the business case, the financial business case. So, you know, so it, you know, that, yeah, the additional costs specific to the pupils has been taken into the round, and so you know, that pupil premium is a required element, and if you didn't put the pupil premium in, then you'd be looking at, you know, if the school kept that, then the element 3 rate would have to go up. So just to sort of
is that
put it
on
into context.
is that on an estimate,
Yes,
Angela?
I mean,
Because obviously we wouldn't know exactly how many are
no,
going to be pupil premium from year to year.
no, it's all sort of estimated and based on averages.
Nathan?
So just for clarity then, effectively the cost to any school would be £8,750, whether or not part of that was funded by pupil premium or the whole amount was just from school funds.
Well, the assumption is there'd be an extra level of support for people who attract pupil premium, and so that would take that into account. But if people said, well, you can have the element 3 but not the pupil premium, then the element 3 would have to go up in order to, you know, to balance out the additional costs for the pupils with the extra needs.
Okay, Liz?
It's coming back to the staffing structure point that I think Nathan raised. So when we looked at that with Flying Bull, we is myself as head of inclusion and Debbie Anderson, head of school improvement, just to have a good look and offer some challenge and support around the model that was being proposed, and we felt it was appropriate to meet need.
Okay, thank you. Sean, and then I think there are a few legacy hands up, so thank you.
So playing devil's advocate there then, let's assume that there's no pupil premium children going through at any point in time. Are you then implicitly saying that the solution is not financially viable?
No, it would be financially viable, but there'd be, you know, that would reduce the cost base a bit. But there's an assumption that they are going through, and so therefore there would be additional costs. So the income and the expenditure moves in the same way. But if you, as a forum, said, okay, you could have the element 3 but not the pupil premium, then that would only work financially for the academy if there was no people with pupil premium coming through, and as soon as they did have one, then they'd start to face financial difficulties or wouldn't be able to properly meet their needs. So there's a direct relationship, and the business case assumes a number of people will have pupil premium, and so the costs are based on that as well. But like I say, if you said no to the pupil premium, then the finance people around the table would say, well, your only other income source is the element 3, so you would have to put that up to make sure and have an assumption about that, so that you did meet all the costs, so you could meet the outcomes of these pupils and be able to return them back to mainstream school.
Okay, so it is therefore it's based on an estimate of, I'm making figures up, say 50% are pupil premium, and those costs are included, which makes everything viable. Okay.
Yes, I mean I can't remember the percentages,
No.
but yeah, but yes, you're right. But you can't just agree the element 3 and not the pupil premium, or it would have to be re-looked at, because the finances wouldn't work, you know, because of yeah.
Can you,
Okay, thank you, Nathan.
for a sec. So, sorry, can I just clarify? So, if a pupil was going to attend who wasn't entitled to pupil premium, then the school that they were departing from would simply pay the 6,300 element 3 top up. But if that child was entitled to pupil premium, then the school that they are moving from would pay the top up plus their pupil premium. Can I confirm that my understanding is correct of that?
I think that's how I've read it. Is that right? So they only pay the pupil premium additional element if they are pupil premium, but the basic rate doesn't change.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. Any more questions or their comments which I can't see in the chat, I'm afraid, sorry. Anything there? No. Okay then.
Dave, sorry, Carl's put his hand up.
Sorry, Carl. Please.
So it was perfectly timed to when you just looked away. No, it was just two things. One was just to say thanks for all the work behind the scenes in getting to this stage. You know, it was a huge effort, lots of consultation, lots of dialogue, lots of challenge, really healthy challenge. And the second was just about pupil premium. You know, one of the first things that we'll do is a needs analysis to really see what are the needs of this child. Often they'll arrive with an education healthcare plan. Almost all the pupils that are there now currently have one. So any resource that enables us to meet their needs, and we're talking, you know, the pupil premium is a vital part of that solution really, and it gives us a bit of flexibility going forwards to meet those needs. I think without it, it does make it more complex, and historically the main school has supported the inclusion centre. It's clearly in this expanded format, it just really cannot do that. That's not something that's sustainable going forward. That's all.
Thank you. And you know, as Laura said earlier, it is a very valuable resource, which we do appreciate. Okay. Are there any further comments or questions about either the Flying Bull provision or a corrected Redwood Park before we start? Angela, your hands up again.
Sorry, it was just to say that just a matter of procedure. Obviously, once we get to the voting, then Carl will leave before we do the voting.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to come to that in a moment, Carl. So nice to see you, and we'll say goodbye very shortly. Okay. In fact, if there are no more questions, I'm going to move on to the vote now. Okay. So nice to see you, Carl, and hopefully see you again. All right. Thank you. Bye bye. Okay. So the recommendation, it's recommended that schools forum endorse 1, the proposal to increase the element 3 top-up value at Flying Bull, and 2, the corrected Redwood Park Academy element 3 top-up values. Do I have a proposer for approval of the recommendation? I can't see, Nathan, if there are any in the RTS. Sorry, I can't see.
No, but I will propose.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Laura? Is that
Laura's got in there first, I think.
Okay, well done. So the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. I will now take the vote by affirmation of the meeting as permitted within the regulations. If there is no dissent, the proposal is passed. Are there any objectors to this recommendation?
Dave, hi, it's Sean here from Hamwick. Can I just record my abstention, please, from the Flying Bull vote? I accept with the Rosewood one, just for clarification.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Thank you for that. That'll be recorded. Nathan, are there any?
There's no comments in the chat. I think Alison may have just raised her hand though.
Yeah, Alison.
Yes, I'm sorry. With Sean abstaining, we are no longer quorate on that particular vote. We need 8 votes in favour for the flying ball one for it to be endorsed by Schools Forum. However, it is a cabinet member decision, and it will go to cabinet member in a meeting at a later date this month. And we'll inform the cabinet member of Schools Forum's outcomes, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Alison. So the cabinet member will get the numbers, will she?
Yes, I'll inform her of the numbers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you then. That brings that item to a close. Thank you everybody for a good discussion there. Move on to item 6, the Schools Forum Constitution. Angela?
Thank you, Dave. Did you do the vote, by the way? Did you finish doing the vote, or you did get the numbers of people? I know Alison mentioned the quorate.
Well, yeah, if we're not quorate, we can't. We won't quorate to do a vote.
We were quorate on the Redwood, so the Redwood was fine.
Okay.
It was the flying ball we weren't quorate on, so that's what I've got the numbers on.
Okay, we have got the numbers. Excellent. Sorry. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
Cool. Lots of different things happening today. It just shows that we do need to get the representatives onto our group, don't we, so that we can have decisions made that represent you all. So going on to the Schools Forum Constitution, the report details the changes in numbers from academy schools and maintained schools, and whilst they've slightly changed from last year, they haven't materially changed. So the representatives from all the different phases and from maintained and academy, and also councillor representation is proposed to stay the same, and so therefore we use the same constitution as we did for last year. I don't know whether there's any questions at all on the report.
Okay. No, anybody have any questions about it? No. Okay then, do I have a proposer for approval of the recommendation? Right, Nathan, can you help me out? Oh, we've got Sean as well.
Sean probably got in there first, I think.
Okay, so Sean has proposed, and Nathan, you've seconded. Thank you very much. So the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. I'll now take the vote by affirmation of the meeting as permitted within regulations. If there is no dissent, the proposal is passed. Are there any objectors to this recommendation?
Nothing in the chat.
Nothing in the chat. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. That recommendation has been approved. Moving on to item 7 now. The dedicated schools grant Q3. Angela.
No, it's Alison this time.
Oh, it's Alison. Sorry, got used to going straight to you, Angela.
That's okay. She saw the panic in her face then. Okay, so this is the regular quarterly report that updates Schools Forum on the forecast outturn position based on the expenditure of the third quarter of the 21-22 financial year. Overall, the budget is forecast to underspend by just under 1.2 million, and this relates to funding for pupils with education, health and care plans in mainstream schools, special schools, alternative provision and out-of-city placements, the reasons for which are detailed in the report. It should be noted that, as in previous years, these forecasts are likely to change as the academic year progresses. As previously reported, the Department for Education has changed the timing of the adjustments to the early years block for 21-22 due to the national lockdowns. And the report sets out the changes in relation to the the 2021 funding adjustment that was received. We're also expecting to see funding reduced by approximately 1.2 million over the course of the final 3 months of the financial year. However, this will not create a pressure on the early years budget, as expenditure is expected to reduce by the similar amount. Finally, Section 4 sets out the changes to the DSG funding allocation received in November 21, part of which relates to the additional funding for the high needs block following a successful challenge on the import-export data. Schools Forum are asked to note the forecast outturn as at the end of December 21 and the associated explanations contained within the report, and also to endorse the budget adjustment for the post-16 element 3 top-up funding of £12,000. I would like to point out that this report has already been to Cabinet member in March 22, and she has approved the endorsement, the adjustment to the post-16 element 3 funding. It's an equal adjustment and matches the income that was received. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alison. Any questions? Nathan, I think your legacy hand up, but any other questions, comments? Jackie.
Yeah, so I obviously represent maintained schools, and I've had an email from one of our maintained head teachers. A couple of points. One, talking about the underspending the high needs budget, and you know what's going to happen with that, and also I think some concern about the specialist places not being taken up, and when schools are desperate for specialist places, why that is the case.
Okay, just to go through the high needs underspends, when we set the budgets with assuming a certain level of growth over the course of the year. And whilst we have seen numbers grow during the course of the last financial year, what we're not seeing is the level of growth that we were expecting. And we think this is potentially because the delay in the number of EHCPs being requested and then approved due to the additional lockdowns we had. Losing track of time now. I think it was December 21, wasn't it? So there has been some issues there. We are seeing quite a long lag. Are we expecting that the number of EHCP plans and requests will increase over the course of time as the full impact of COVID is actually being felt by pupils? So we do expect some future increases in those requests. In addition, when we were looking and doing some analysis regarding our high needs places, what we have seen is the largest area of underspend, particularly in specialist places, has been around the summer term. And it seems that we put the places in expecting the pupils to go into those schools over the course of the summer term, and they've not materialised then. However, looking at the autumn term figures that we got just at the end of December, we are seeing that the schools are just about full. There's a small number of spare places, but nowhere near the number that we'd had over the summer term. And we're seeing, I know we are now in May, but we did see that continue over the course of the spring term as well. We do know with the high needs places, with regards to the overall underspend we've got on the DSG and therefore the carry forward we're likely to have at year end. We do know there is some pressure coming up with the number of increase in places that we're seeing from September 22, with the new inclusion centres coming online and then the increasing places on those inclusion centres. That will come through as funding to us eventually, but there is this lag in funding. So we will always have this 7-month lag until those schools and inclusion centres are fully operational and have been running for a number of years. And that's where we're looking to help use the support of that carry forward to help us manage that.
Right, so the money will just be carried forward to address all those pressures?
It will, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? No? Okay, in that case, it's recommended that the Schools Forum notes the forecast budget position of the DSG as of 31st of December 2021, and 2, endorses the budget adjustment to the post-16 element 3 top up by 12,000. So do I have a proposer for approval of the recommendation? Yeah, Simon's nodding. We'll have Simon. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Can't see everybody. So, Jackie's your hand up. Are you seconding?
I think Sean and Sharon possibly came in with the hands.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. That's brilliant. Okay, the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. On no, take the vote by affirmation of the meeting as permitted within regulations. There is no dissent. The proposal is passed. Are there any objectors to this recommendation? Okay, there are no objections, so that's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 8, a verbal update regarding the National Fair Funding Formula, and that's Alison.
It is, yes. Thank you. Forum members will be aware that back in between July and September, the government consulted on their proposals with regards to completing the reforms to the National Fair Funding Formula. A number of members from Schools Forum supported ourselves in formulating a response to the consultation. And in March this year, the government issued its response to the consultation. So what I wanted to do is just give you a quick update on what that would mean as far as our funding for 23-24 and beyond. So for 23-24, the government are going to be updating the legislation to require a number of things. One, that all local authorities use all and only the National Fair Funding factors in their local formula. So for Portsmouth, that isn't an issue. We currently use all the factors within the National Fair Funding formula, with the exception of the sparsity factor, which as a city, not an urban authority, so not a county authority, we don't trigger because all our schools were in close proximity to each other. The government is also saying that if the authorities don't use any of the National Fair Funding factors, we would have to move at least 10% closer to the National Fair Funding factor than we already are. Again, this isn't a particular issue for Portsmouth. We may have a small concern with regards to the lump sum, and that's because in recent years we've had some surplus funds within the schools block due to the adjustments that we've had on the NNDR rates, with the schools have gone academy, and also to the disapplication requests we've put in for a minimum funding guarantee. I have double checked if we do have the situation that we do need to pass funds out to schools and we want to use the lump sum to do that, the DfE would be happy to accept a disapplication request for us to do that. So again, it should leave us with the flexibility we require within our funding formula. And then the last one was just basically to say that if local authorities don't use the definition of English as a second language as set out within the factor, then they need to be doing that. And that means that any children within the last 3 years that have joined a school as English with a second language need to be included in the factor. We already do that. That's one of our factors. So again, there's no change to us there. Finally, the DfE has said they're going to be carrying out further consultations over the coming year, and this is regarding the private finance initiative factor, which we use for one of our schools, growth funding, falling roles funding, split sites and exceptional circumstances. I think the key ones that will probably impact on us will be the PFI factor and the growth fund. And what I'm asking for is when we get notification of those consultations, if Schools Forum members would be happy to support the process as they've done in previous years, and to provide input to the consultation response. If there's anybody who would be interested in doing that, if they could drop me an email after this meeting, I'm happy to keep their names on file until we get the consultations and then contact them.
Thank you, Alison. Yeah, and there's a lot of good work that's happened over the last few years to get to this point where we're not affected, by in any massive way. And I think Schools Forum done quite well in helping out with those consultations over the last few years for various things.
Yeah,
and it's really useful. So please do contact Alison. Any questions for Alison on that, or any comments? No? Okay. Right, so just final item number 9, dates of future meetings. So you've got them there: 13th of July, 5th of October, 7th of December, 11th of January, and 8th of February. I'm sure there's. Oh, Nathan, you've got a point. Oh, you're mute.
Sorry, not in relation to dates, but I just did have a question for Alison, which may be of relevance to colleagues within Schools Forum, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
So obviously there has been press and discussion in relation to Ukrainian families, and so I'm just wondering, my understanding is some schools within the city may have already had Ukrainian families join, or perhaps imminently expecting them to join. And my understanding is that the government has released some funding which is intended to go to local authorities and then back to schools. So I was just wondering if it might be possible to ask colleagues, are you able to give us any update on numbers, if that understanding is correct, and any plans for implementation that you might be able to share with us?
Liz, you able to help us out there? Thank you.
I can help you out with some numbers that have come from our admissions team. So with regard to primary age children, 14, and secondary, 7. So our admissions team is monitoring this and working with schools to ensure that places are available for children. I am not going to be able to give you any detail about the funding, I'm afraid. I know the same as you, and I think we're still waiting for further details, but I can see Angela's got her hand up.
Yeah, so the government has released the amounts for the different phases for the pupils, and that's under the homes scheme. So there's 2 different schemes for the Ukrainian refugees coming in. So for the homes for Ukrainian people, they have released the amounts per pupil, but we're still waiting guidance. And Alison went to Southeast Finance Officers group meeting at the beginning of this month, and asked lots of finance officers were interested to know more details about when it was coming, etc. But they said the guidance was being worked on, and it would be coming soon. So we've not been physically given any money yet, and so as soon as we hear something, we will let you know. But we are under the impression that that will cover things like free school meal entitlements, and it will also have to provide for high needs for the children as well. But once we get more information, then we will, distribute that for everybody. And Mike does a weekly message where Mike Stoneman does a weekly message where we provide all the guidance that we've had. But then there's also the other scheme, which is the family visa scheme, and those amounts do not apply at the moment, as far as we're aware, to families that have come in via that scheme. So we're awaiting the details and of the Homes for Ukrainians, and then we will look at what we could do locally if the schemes don't match. And we are aware of the carry forward on the DSG as well. So once we know the what the guidance says, we can look at putting forward some options, because I mean, probably Sarah and Liz will probably say, but I think everybody's working together in the city, and we want to make sure that the finances follow the pupils where we can, and we are aware of the DSG carry forward, but we've just got to wait really for the guidance on the Home for Ukrainians first to see what it says, and then we'll work on things. And if there is a proposal for the DSG carry forward, then obviously we're going to come back to Schools Forum with those proposals. So that's where we are at the moment, and we and other councils are pushing for the guidance, and say we will distribute it as soon as we can. And sorry, just to say that's in addition. The education elements are in addition to the other funding that the local authority is getting to support the families that are coming into the UK.
Thank you, Angela. Liz, did you want to add to that? You're on mute, Liz.
Apologies. If you'll see in the chat, there is just a comment there that those numbers are about children that we know of, but they may not have started school yet. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Nathan, does that answer your?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
That's brilliant. The only thing I think perhaps Alison, I might speak to you afterwards, is about chasing some of the people who aren't here on a regular basis, because I think that's going to become a bit of a challenge, isn't it? So I don't know whether we can get together and maybe I speak to some people, because we need. It's frustrating if we're all here and we're not core.
Yes,
people are giving up their time. It is a bit frustrating, so we might have to I don't know, strong arm tactics or whatever we do, we'll work forward on, shall we?
Yeah, I'll drop you a note after the meeting and we can arrange to catch up on it.
I think that'd be brilliant. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That's the end of the meeting. Thanks for attending. Everyone who's been here has been brilliant, and it's worthwhile having those good discussions. Jane is going to end the live stream now and let you know when we are off air. So it takes a few minutes, so please don't start any conversations. But if you want to also disappear, you are welcome, and thank you all.